The connections between the different MEP objects are made using the snaps that appear on the connectors. If an MEP entity is activated and the mouse approaches another entity previously modeled, snap nodes appear in correspondence with the free connections, shown with green circles, indicating which connectors are available, although they do not yet indicate connection compatibility. If one of the connections is brought in correspondence with one of the free connections of the MEP object to be connected, provided that the connection is compatible, the snap turns yellow from green, and at that point, you can click to create the connection. As an example, suppose you want to connect a T-pressurized fitting in 3D to the male connection of modeled pressurized pipe, to which the water main system has been assigned and characterized by an external diameter of 16.00 mm and a thickness of 1 mm. From the design menu, activate the T-fitting pressurized, deactivate the Smart M.E.P mode, and proceed with the new T-fitting configuration by clicking on the plus button. The T-fitting profile must have the same size as the pipe to which it is connected. Therefore, in the external diameter field, simply enter a value of 16.00 mm, and in the thickness field, leave the value to 1 mm, proposed by default. The internal diameter value of 14.00 mm is calculated automatically. The connection types must be set during this phase so that it is complementary with the other MEP objects that still need to be connected. In this case, suppose you want to connect one section of the T-fitting to the male connection of the pipe, the connection of the T-fitting is left to female. A second pipe must be drawn rotated by 60 degrees concerning the connection of the fitting, therefore the value of the angle to be inserted is set equal to 60 degrees. Once the new fitting configuration settings have been completed, the relating values are confirmed with the green check. The fitting is then generated with simply a click in drawing space. Considering that the anchor is locked by default on the A port, with the F5 or F6 key, move to the C port connection corresponding to a derived connection. If the fitting is not aligned with the pipe axis, you do not need to rotate it, as the software does it automatically. The fitting is aligned with the pipe thanks to intelligent connections. In fact, the connection between two entities is made by aligning two connectors, so that the model is automatically oriented in space. In this case, since the branch is being connected to the pipe, the protractor does not appear to choose the angle of the branch. If you want to rotate the fitting body concerning the C connection, select the fitting, move the anchor to C using the F6 key, and enable the rotation object grip. Using the angle snap of the object grip or typing the value from the keyboard, choose the desired angle, for example -90 degrees. Another snap, also useful for modeling, is represented by a blue circle. This snap generally appears when modeling an MEP entity using known points of an object already present as a reference in 3D space. For example, if you are modifying the length of a pipe using the gray arrow, and you want to align it to an MEP entity or an object in another environment, use the blue snap that appears in the singular points of the object considered. Supposing you want to align the connection of a pipe to that of an MEP entity, just move the mouse on the connection you want to take as a reference and click when the snap changes from green to blue, as seen for the connection between the pipe and the fitting. Or, if you want to take as a reference a singular point of any other object, even if it does not belong to the plant environment, for example, the vertex of an envelope, you can use the blue snap. If we consider not a point but a line of an object in another environment, such as the edge of an envelope, the snap is still blue but takes the form of a line. The blue snap on an MEP connector object also appears when needing to connect a multiple MEP entities to it. Select different MEP objects. Unlock the multi-selection object grip with the padlock, and move it to a connector. If you then move the multiple selections in correspondence with a connection of another MEP object, the connection snap, in this case, is blue instead of yellow, as two MEP entities are not connecting, but a selection of entities, which represent a block on which automatic connections cannot be guaranteed. By working on the levels, the connections can be made using the same snaps seen in 3D, with the integration of all the other snaps already seen in the architectural environment. If, for example, the perpendicular snap is activated from the snap button in the top bar of the menu, it is possible to trace pipes perpendicular to both other MEP objects and objects belonging to other environments. Or, if the parallel snap is activated, it is possible to trace pipes with an axis parallel to that of another pipe or another object. In this case, press the F11 key from the keyboard on the reference object to store its direction and then shape the new pipe according to the direction just acquired. All other snaps can be used in MEP modeling in phase just as in the architectural design phase. If a pipe or fitting is activated from the drawing menu, the transition fittings, automatic, are shown in the Properties toolbox, precisely in the Characteristics section, i.e. all the fittings that the program can generate automatically on the object when it is connected to another MEP entity. To generate an automatic fillet, Smart M.E.P mode must be activated. If instead it is deactivated, unchecking the relative field in the Properties toolbox, the relative set automatic fittings will not be created on that entity. The fittings that can be automatically generated are the curve, the T-fitting and the transition. For each activated entity, depending on compatibility, one or more automatic fillets can be set, in particular. With the entities of type pipe, conduit, ducts and cable trays, the curve, the T-connection and the transition fitting joint can be created. With the flexible, corrugated and all other fittings, you can only realize the transition. The same fittings can also be activated from the drawing menu, with a few differences in modeling mode compared to automatic generation. In fact, they must be customized concerning the diameter or possibly the angle between the connections before being inserted. On the contrary, automatic fittings are created directly by the program based on the connected entities, from which they acquire the profile dimensions and the angle between the connections if any. The material assigned by default to automatic fittings respects the compatibility with the material assigned to the entities to which they are connected. For example, if you activate the pipe, and choose copper for water as the material, the automatic fittings that are set by default for it are in copper. The parameters that define the automatic fitting model are set by default and it is not possible to modify their values. For the curve automatic fitting only, by clicking on the relevant field in the Properties toolbox, it is possible to modify the AD curvature parameter, that is the ratio between the radius of curvature and the size of the pipe, which corresponds to the diameter for circular profiles and with the base for rectangular profiles. By default, the AD ratio is set equal to 1.0 for the curves, while it is equal to 1.50 for the curve drainage. You can change the curvature value by clicking on the three-dotted button from the AD field. From the AD menu, you can choose between three types of curvature, narrow, wide or very wide, which correspond to the curvature values, 1, 1.5 and 3. The chosen value will be shown in the factor field. It can also be changed by typing a custom value but not less than 0.6. The auto-adapting curve can be generated in different ways depending on the modeling context. The procedures available are described below. If a pipe has already been modeled, but you want to connect a new pipe using a curve, you need to activate the pipe from the drawing menu and move the mouse cursor over the existing pipe. When the snap turns yellow, you can create the connection, then you can click to trace the pipe. The protractor and the directional cube appear, which can be used in the same way as described for pipe insertion in any point of the 3D. The protractor appears by default allows you to trace the pipe in an orthogonal plane to the section. Therefore, if the pipe does not lie on a horizontal plane, the goniometer will not coincide with the default directional cubes. Moreover, using the protractor, the pipe can be traced according to an angle that varies from 0 degrees to plus or minus 90 degrees. The angle chosen during this phase will be used to generate the curve automatically, therefore it is not possible to model curves with a curvature angle greater than 90 degrees with the protractor. To draw curves with a greater angle, the padlock must be unlocked, and the directional cube released. In this manner, curves with angles of up to 179 degrees can be drawn. You can also use the directional cube if you want to trace the pipe on a horizontal plane, or vertical planes in the local reference with the limitation on the 90 degrees angle of curvature. According to the chosen plane, and the direction of the pipe in space, the protractor will show the main angle snaps the X and Y directions in the horizontal plane and the H and V directions in the vertical planes. With a second click, the position of the second pipe connection is fixed. With a further click, the length of the new pipe being modeled is chosen and the curve connection between the two pipes is automatically calculated. The automatic modeling of the curve takes place even if the connection of another pipe reaches the connection point. In this case, the bending angle is established by the piping to be connected. If the curve obtained with the Smart M.E.P mode is selected, it is possible to read the values of the parameters it acquired from the pipe. The plant system propagates automatically from one entity to another, so if you leave in the name field for the pipe being modeled, the transition curve will be assigned. The type of curve that is set as an automatic connection will be shown in the transition fitting field. From here, by clicking on the plus button, you can read the values assigned to the profile, which by default are the curvature angle, based on the angle chosen with the directional cube or obtained through free modeling in 3D space, the type of connections, A and B, and the connection size, diameter or base. In the dimension field, accessible only with Smart M.E.P mode disabled, you can read the variables set on the profile, which by default are the angle of curvature, based on the angle chosen with the directional cube or simply modeled in 3D space, the kind of connections, A and B, and the connection size, diameter or base. The transition assigned by default will be shown in the subsection of transition fittings. The types of connections assigned to the curve are shown in the connectors subsection. From the connections menu, you can also change the genre type and the program will also adapt other relevant component genre types to match automatically and complementary to other modified components and accessories. The ID curvature ratio value is shown in the geometry section and the detail of the curved section is presented in the profile subsection. The type, whether circular or rectangular, based on the type of curve set, the external and internal dimensions, diameter for circular profiles, base and height for rectangular profiles, and the thickness. Also, the properties of insulation and coating, where provided, as well as all the other properties of the pipe, are attributed to the automatic connection. If, on the other hand, the pipes to be joined have already been modeled on the drawing and the extensions of the axes intersect, it is possible to create the curve automatically by selecting the two pipes and clicking on the Connect button, which is enabled in the top bar of the drawing menu. In this case, the Smart M.E.P mode must be activated for pipes and curves, which then acquires their parameters and properties. The methods described can be used in both 3D or 2D levels, in this case with the limitations already seen for two-dimensional representations. On the other hand, you want to bend a pipe in vertical plane, working exclusively in 3D, you can do it graphically by creating a curve in correspondence with the bend. The angle of curvature will be a function of the curve dimension. First, you need to select the pipeline already modeled and, using the brake button that appears in the design menu of the top bar, create a joint. The generated connection can be moved along the pipe axis. If one of the two sections of the pipe is selected, the gray arrow appears allowing you to graphically modify the length, while with a joint, it allows you to change the length of the selected section, leaving the connection unchanged, thus resulting in a rigid displacement of the connection along the pipe to which it belongs. After moving the connection in correspondence with the bending point sought, proceed to the creation of the curve in the vertical plane by clicking on the green arrow that appears in correspondence with the joint, thus reshaping the broken pipe in the vertical plane, starting from the definition, graphically or by typing the keyboard value of the height that the curve must have. In this way, a pipe can be quickly remodeled by automatically creating curves based on the dimensions set with the green arrow. To reshape the curve obtained, select one of the two pipe sections converging there and click on the green arrow which appears, this time, on the intersection point of the axis extensions of the two pipe sections. The curve is thus cancelled on the drawing and the connection is free to move along the vertical axis. Regardless of the method used to generate the fitting, you can change its material or type, by accessing the fitting field and clicking on the button with the three dots to access the libraries, where you can select another type of fitting, different from the previous one both in material and possibly in shape in the case of fittings, which can have both circular and rectangular shapes in correspondence with the various connections.